And welcome to tonight's Order Paper Podcast Scrutiny Week special. We have got Councillor for Kohi constituency of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council and accommodation provider for its in the ballot nationwide tour, Mawera Karetai, who's coming all the way. Now, you coming live from Whakatane or are you coming live from somewhere else?
I'm in Dunedin today. I'm down in Dunedin for a couple of weeks for my job at the University of Otago.
And is that to ride out the contract for this year, or are you going to be one of these councillors who are going to be having multiple jobs to make things meet like Nigel Farage?
Well, the Bay of Plenty Regional Council role it's regarded as a part-time job, and my teaching that I do for the University of Otago is mostly at night. So it actually is quite complementary. But it's a foolish person who takes on a role of an elected person and gives up their day job and the security that brings. And actually look at what happened in the job for 6 weeks and we get sacked.
Well, in the process of it, yeah. I mean, getting told that. I'm not sure if it's actually going to fly getting rid of regional councils, though, considering, they talk about duplication of services, but the only duplication of services with regional councils and city and district councils is the billing department.
Well, it's really interesting. I mean, there's always a little bit of crossover, but actually if you think about it, the regional council's job is to enforce the government's policy.
Correct.
And so if the government says, actually, we think that you're doing too good a job of enforcing the policy, and so we're getting rid of you, how does that make sense? I do not understand.
It doesn't. No. I mean, as I say, the regional council is the environmental watchdog. Or as a kid, from what I remember, they provide public transport. I mean, that's Wellington. Actually, I mean, in Wellington, the public transport component of the rates bill is actually the higher of the two, but that is out of whack with the rest of the country. Wellington is quite unique in that because we have a regional council that spends a lot of money on public transport. As you know, we've got
and it shows, Sam. You guys have got an absolutely outstanding public transport system. You're the envy of every place in the country.
And every single look at you, like you can't catch a bus to Rotorua.
No, I cannot. I can catch a bus to Tauranga, but it doesn't align with the times that our kids need to be over there for going to the Polytech or the university. So, and it used to be that we had a subsidised system in place that was paid for by the regional council, the Polytech, the university, and the district council. And then the Polytech, University, and District Council decided they didn't want to put any money in. So Regional Council carried the can for another year. But of course, it's that short-sighted nature of people who don't actually understand and connect with the reality of life of people. So At the time when all of that was going on, we had incredibly low unemployment. And when we have low unemployment in this country, we have low enrolments in tertiary education. Now we have incredibly high unemployment, and so those enrolments will go up, and we've got no way of getting our kids there. So Toi Oho Mai, which is the Polytech based in Tauranga, have sold off their accommodation for students. So there's not even that option available for our out-of-town kids anymore. So Whakatane kids, what are they going to do? Hitchhike? I do not know.
Ride a bike like your son did?
Yeah, they could ride a bike.
Starting there was like, these bloody cyclists on State Highway 2, get them off the road.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, considering there are no passing lanes between Matata and what do you call it? The start of the Papamoa motorway?
No, there are none. There was an unofficial one for a while, but now they've put a cheese cutter in the middle of the road to stop people from being able to use it as a passing lane.
That's where that speed camera is.
Yeah, right at the end of Matata when you're going up towards Tauranga.
No, I do remember that speed camera going through there, but it kind of made a bit of sense.
Yeah,
it's actually one of the ones that you can actually go there. It's like actually it has some logic why it's there.
Yes, it did actually work. Although I've never sped through there. So, in fact, I don't know. I think that's probably got to be like the least productive speed camera in the country because I don't think I've never even been passed through there. Like people just don't seem to speed through there. Yeah.
I don't know. Unless it used to be a passing spot, but it's just kind of gone away with the times.
Yeah. Well, when Jack did his walk, through there. That was one pinch point that we were a bit worried about, because he could only go on a bridge that had no no curb to walk along.
Oh,
He was on the bridge on the road, and so he basically had to run. He had to run through that area.
oh, and he would have been probably a little bit exhausted by that point, because that's not exact.
Yes. That's when his blisters were fat, and he was calling me and saying, "Mum, I can feel my blisters popping while I walk."
Oh, that would have been
Yeah.
nasty.
Yeah.
That would have been nasty. Yeah.
Tough
Okay.
little kid.
Okay, let's get off to the bush. And what do we call James Meager? I don't know. What do you call, apart from the MP for Rangitata, at the Transport Select Committee, and let's see how they get scrutinised. And we've got Uncle Andy in the chair. Oh,
we've got a minute bonus because we're early. So we've got you here for half an hour. So the usual process will, if you want to take about 3 or 4 minutes to start off with, and then we'll go straight to questions. I don't know, how do you want to handle between the two of you in terms of...
Well, we've got delegations, so anything from...
Would you both want to do some intros in your own areas? And then
we don't have a lot to say. I mean...
Okay, right, okay, anyway, in your hands.
Well, just a couple of things that I think would be worth committee thinking about. One is transition to road user charges, electronic road user charges, which is a really important structural change for the revenue system that runs the transport system, obviously. The simple reality is we have declining revenue over time because of the rise of hybrids and EVs and fuel efficiency, which is a good thing. But we've got to make sure that we get the revenue to run the roads and the transport system. And so the electronic road user charges is a really important step towards revenue sustainability, but also recognising the fact that the RUC system, needs to enter the modern world as well. I mean, it's ridiculous. You still need to go out and buy your $1,000 license or your 1,000-kilometre license, get sent in the mail. You've got to put it on the front, stick in front of your dashboard and the rest of it. So we're trying to bring, the RUC system itself is actually world leading in comparison to a lot of other countries. We're far in advance of other places. We've got to bring it into the modern world. The other point I'd stress is that we're not rushing this. There's quite a bit of work to do. And we'll be making decisions in due course. And successive governments will have to do that as well. And so we're quite keen to do this in a quite constructive and sensible way. So encourage the committee to have a think about that in the future. But there's a lot of other things I could talk for half an hour, but I suspect you have questions. So
you'd like to say as well?
I guess the only thing I would add is that in the aviation space, there's a real focus on regional connectivity and the work that the ministry is doing in that space, along with airlines, airports, and civil aviation. Rules reform, certification processes, the cross-industry aviation action plan, and acknowledge the previous government for the Interim Aviation Council, bringing together industry and government for the first time. And then in the maritime space, significant investment in and around Chatham Islands shipping, vessel, and coastal shipping services as well. So our focus really is on the connectivity, logistics, and infrastructure, making sure our rules are fit for purpose. And the committee would have seen some rules announced last week around advanced aviation and just being an enabler in that space as well. That's really it.
Cool. Okay, we'll go straight to questions. I'm going to take Tangi and then we'll go first. If nobody else goes, I'll go next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ministers. I want to ask questions about RONs. I think, Minister, you have now publicly acknowledged that the figure associated with delivering the RONs at this stage will be around $56 billion, which is quite a significant increase on what had previously been signalled when you were identifying that. So I note that you said that hard choices lie ahead because of the challenges. In terms of actually transitioning that project to delivering, I think the amount that's been set aside is about $1.2 billion, which is basically around 2% of that total. So how can this credibly still be delivered as a suite of a package, given the real funding constraints that you yourself now identify?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The roads of national significance, and indeed I tend to talk about major transport projects in the round because it's not just about the roads. We've got significant demand for important projects like the North Western Busway in Auckland, for example, which is a very important project. Obviously, public transport in Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch and other places as well. So you're right that that they're expensive. And what I was trying to lay out in that speech that I think you're referencing a couple of weeks ago is that there are real challenges around that. What I hear from the industry and also New Zealanders is they want a credible pipeline of delivery in the long term. So I was just stating the obvious in a way a couple of weeks ago, which is that we're not going to build everything straight away, and not everything can happen all at the same time. So the idea you'd go out and have 6 major roads in construction, you just literally could not do that from a market capacity point of view. And if you did do it, it would push up construction cost inflation to stratospheric levels. So you actually don't want to do that. What you want is a credible, long-term, sustainable pipeline that people can see ahead of them. And so we're doing some work on that at the moment. We're not there yet, but that's a 2026 type thing. And related to that, again, just trying to make the point to people so everyone's aware of it, that there are quite difficult choices around that. Ultimately, road and public transport projects have to be paid for. Now, fuel tax is going up in 2027 and 2028, but it has been held flat for quite a long time. And, there's a fuel tax will have to go up, but there's also a limit economically and politically, as I think you would acknowledge, to how much fuel tax can go up. Tolls are a useful revenue source. Crown capital contributions into the National Land Transport Fund, which successive governments have been making for some time now. That capital is contestable with roads and with our hospitals and schools and defence. The committee will be aware of a significant uplift in defence capital. So all of that competes, and the transport system, which is meant to be self-funding through RUC and fuel tax, has not been for a long time. And so I'm just trying to speak the blunt reality. It's good that you noticed.
That's accepted. In terms of that reference to work being done at the moment but not available yet, so I infer from that there is a reprioritisation process that you're looking at in terms of the suite of RONs and which ones might be able to be delivered at what point in time. Is that what you're referencing here?
More sequencing. So we committed to the 17 RONs that are in the GPS, the government policy statement. Those are government priorities as they're reflected in the GPS. But they're at different stages, right? So just take 2 obvious examples. And don't infer anything from this in terms of the prioritisation, but it illustrates the point. Cambridge to Pierre, which is the extension of the Waikato Expressway, that just got consent through the previous government's fast track process. So 24 kilometres, is that right? 21? 20, yeah, let's say 20. Offline extension of the Waikato Expressway. That's got consents. That's been planned for years. There's been various different commitments made around that. That is quite close to, close-ish to construction. The Northwest Alternative State Highway in Northwest Auckland, that's frankly just like a line on a map. That is like years away from construction. So the kind of my point is that they are actually at different stages anyway. So some are closer to construction, some are much further down the line, and that's why that 1.2 billion that you referenced, which sounds like a big number, but actually when you add it all up around the different projects, it all sort of evens out. That is to get projects further up the kind of food chain, so to speak, towards construction readiness. So it's about designations and land acquisition and consenting and route protection and doing the designs. I mean, all of that stuff takes time and costs money, and it's not quite as simple as maybe some members of the public think. It's like, oh, we're going to build a road here, just turn up and build it. Like it's much more complicated than that, as I think the committee will appreciate. So that 1.2 billion is going towards creating that credible pipeline. And in terms of to your question about prioritisation, it's not so much about reprioritisation. I would classify it as trying to get the right sequence and the right timeframes.
Just one bit of brief stuff. Given that your government has sort of presided over cuts in the areas of road safety, public transport and the like, what guarantee is that as these projects move forward, not prioritisation but sequencing, that communities will not face even deeper cuts as a result to find the revenue to... I don't know what you mean by cuts to road safety and public transport. There's more money for both in this NLTP period. In fact, we've made quite a significant investment in road police and road safety, for example. So what's that a reference to? Well, in terms of road safety, the focus on road safety is not a priority. And likewise, talk to any council around the country, they'll talk to you about the need that they actually have to do much of the heavy lifting now in terms of fare box recovery to initiate an increase in revenue. Having said that, what guarantees can you provide to communities to ensure that there are no further deeper cuts as a result of needing to find the revenue to deliver on that?
Well, we can disagree. I mean, I reject your characterisation of cuts, but we can agree to disagree on that. We have asked public transport authorities to lift their private share, or to lift the private share. And that's because there's been a quite steep decline in the amount of private share that people contribute towards public transport over time. It sort of started a little bit pre-COVID, but it sort of accelerated during COVID. And so we're trying to get that share back to what it was pre kind of 2019. We haven't actually set that target to, like the numbers actually won't even get back to pre-2019 levels. So we've just asked for a bit more. But also NZTA is taking a flexible approach with public transport authorities around that. So I reject your characterisation. But you're right, the roads and major transport projects they kind of have, I mean, there's a baseline level of things you have to do right in the system with transport system funding and maintenance is obviously critical. And I think you probably had it for comment already, and they've told you that, as a country, we've been far too focused on new stuff at the expense of looking after what we've already got. That's important. And there's big investment in this GPS period into road maintenance and significant uplift there, which is really important. It's making a difference around the country. So you've got your baseline level stuff, and I would classify public transport as part of that, and road safety, all the different things that are in the activity classes. Then you've got your stuff on top of that, which is your new spend. And we'll have a government policy statement 2027 is the next kind of it's the next window to look at that stuff. And as I say, there are some quite tough choices because and councils are part of this too. Everyone wants something, and you've got to work out where the money goes.
No, colleagues, rather than
Okay, I think we've got a lot of questions and answers for Tangi. Interesting mentioning about fare box recovery, because rates caps might increase fare box recoveries for public transport.
Do you know, Sam, the very first thing he said about, when he's talking about whatever's going to replace ruck, how they're going to take their time and do it properly. It's like, this is like the only thing where they're taking their time and doing it properly. Every other single decision they have made has been rushed, not thought out, not consulted on properly. And so I just found that funny.
I think that's because it could affect a lot of voters, but if it's done badly, it could be chaos. And I think because they had a mini example of the introduction of rucks for EVs.
Yeah.
So they had an idea of what it would be to introduce rucks at EVs. So I think they've been given a little bit of a taste of what can happen and how to potentially make it better. But I don't know if people the thing that is, it's not the Bish doesn't tend to usually do it. Luxon's the worst for it. It's like, well, it's more money in your pocket because you get your bill in a month and go, but you still got to pay the bill. Exactly. It's a bit like, yes, you could prepay your tolls for the Peppermire motorway, or you could post-pay it up to 5 days later. You still got to pay it.
Oh, but this is the important thing that we must always remember, Sam. Christopher Luxon is sorted. He's fine. He's sorted.
Yeah, well, he's probably one who probably can sit there, probably has a five-digit limit credit card and probably always pays it on time in one payment.
I would go as far as to say I bet he never even has to open a bill. He doesn't have to check. He never has to check his balance before he uses his FPOS card. Yeah. He's always got enough money to do anything he wants. But he doesn't think about how the people that he serves in this country, it's getting increasingly difficult for people to be able to do that. Yeah.
I mean, well, the one thing I wished happened to him, but he probably wanted to say, imagine if he had to have his accommodation allowance that was some ridiculous amount that was twice, was it not? Well, it's not quite twice, but, like a good 50% more than my annual income to apply for the accommodation allowance that he had for that if he went through the work and income process. Because if he went through the work and income process, he would have been declined.
Oh my gosh, that would just be so good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because put it this way. If I went to say, oh, hi, I've got a freehold property, but I'd like to claim 54 grand for it.
Yeah.
A working income is going to go, mate, the only fee that's going to cost for that property, which the one in Wellington you had would have been body corp fees, you can get an accommodation allowance on the body corp fees and the insurance. That's it.
Imagine if every one of the fancy lunches that they organise for visitors and stuff in the Beehive, if they had to go to WINS and go through the process that you go through to get a food grant. Imagine if they actually had to apply for a grant every time they fed people.
Imagine them going with the green card to Newwood Fondant, because that's the nearest supermarket, and every time, I'm sorry, sir, minister, prime minister, you can't buy alcohol on that. You can't sit there and have your Pinot Noir or your champagne or your Merlot.
You can't buy good quality meat. You can't buy anything that's
well, well, they're not that restricted, but I think you'd use up your allowance very quickly if you did buy what you call eye fillet steak.
I would like to see them learn a little bit of what suffering looks like in our community, because my concern about all of them is just how incredibly disconnected they are. And I see that in the decisions they're making at the moment, and we're talking about regional councils before, they're so disconnected from the regions. They stood on this promise of allowing regions to look after themselves, and everything they've done since then is about taking power away from regions.
Yes, unless you do what we want.
Well, even then.
Yeah, that's actually a point. Yeah, and then also here's the one water down well deal. This is one I kind of like. I don't know how the hell it flew. So in the Horowhenua District Council, Palmerston City Council, and Rangitukia District Council have joined into a water sharing agreement on a water down well plan. But Manawatu District Council, which sits in the middle of all of it, chose to go it alone. I don't know what would be the principle behind it, because is it like pooling the resources? This is in Wellington. Yes, we have 4 different territorial councils that feed off the same water supply.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say it's the flashiest entity being Wellington Water, but the fact is, we've had that in the mid 2000s. Greater Wellington Regional Council asked Kapiti Coast District Council to join in because they wanted to tap the water from the Otaki River, but Kapiti Coast District Council said no. But the interesting thing is, there was 2 droughts that Wellington-related water restrictions would have been drastically nowhere near the water level damage of a reduction if they could tap into the Otaki River on those occasions. Because Kapiti Coast didn't have a problem at that point, but was it Wellington basically had household use only for 6 or 8 weeks or something in one summer, and if they had access to the Otaki River, they wouldn't have had it.
Yeah, well, but then the bigger issue, of course, is the amount of wastewater that is, well, no, not wastewater, the amount of water going to waste in Wellington, because they've been, they haven't had the money to be able to do the infrastructure upgrades and to manage their water system properly. So even if you had have started feeding water from another source into the system, it doesn't actually fix the problem of all the water that goes to waste.
And these water restrictions was the 2014 ones,
right?
So it's not the most recent one. The most recent restrictions were associated with leaks.
Yeah,
and which is 2 years ago. And,
do you know that Edgecombe, where the big earthquake in '87, we've still got pipes from the 1987 Edgecombe earthquake that are broken and wrecked, and contributes to the groundwater problem that they have in that community.
Oh, yeah.
Back from the '87 earthquake, because the cost to do that infrastructure work, and unfortunately, the larger centres get the attention. Those small little communities like Edgecombe, for us, Edgecombe, Waimana, places like that, they're the last on the list.
And they're the blips on the map that, no one would know.
And yet they pay huge rates. Their rates are just as expensive as being in town. They still pay for their share of the library, and they pay for their share of the swimming pool, and they pay for their share of... Well, no, they don't. Well, they've got they have a little satellite library, but they pay for the town one.
Oh, okay. No, because I know Mirapara has, I would say, you can call it satellite, but it was a reasonable size.
Yeah.
But you can't need something.
It's quite a long way from anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, you are so right. I mean, the only thing that I'd say that has really close is the 7 railway tracks.
Yes.
Trains that run.
That's exactly right.
Compared to Rotorua.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see more from the bush.
Take subs on these because we've only got 20 more minutes. What I'm going to do is just say put your subs into your main office. If we can get rags, everybody wants to have a say at some point, so we'll go do that. And if we've got some time for some subs on the end of that, we'll do that. So Julianne, we're going to come over here to...
For the Minister, can I just ask through the Chair, if the Minister could be a little more succinct in his answers so we can ask more questions?
Well, we'll try. You're getting very fulsome answers.
Yeah.
We'll try and keep it all tight.
Happily, mine are very much in the same area.
Julianne, I'm just trying to assist you on the journey.
Let's go.
My area of questions was related to Tangi. So I wanted to know, how important is benefit cost analysis in determining the prioritization of the RONs and the sequencing?
It's important, but it's not the determinative factor.
Why not?
Well, because we're trying to take a range of things into account in terms of the sequencing. So if you did it strictly on BCR, right, leaving aside the merits or otherwise or benefit cost, which has its own issues. If you did it strictly on BCR, you might end up with quite a skewed sequence.
Right, but if something is low benefits relative to cost, is it likely to come early on in the program of RONs?
I suppose what I would say to you is we are taking account of a range of things. Benefit cost is part of it. Regional spread, because you don't want to end up in a situation where, I'm not saying this would happen on a strict BCR basis, but if you just all your projects were in Auckland, for example, that would not be economically sustainable for Auckland, but also frankly wouldn't be politically sustainable for everybody. We're taking account of readiness for market and construction readiness as well, because again, if you talk to the sector, they'll say to you, we've got to stop the boom bust up down yo-yo effect. And so what we're trying to do is, and this is why it's complicated, is get a credible 10 to 20 year sequence of major projects around the country that is deliverable, has a regional spread so that there's a good spread around the country and you're not focused or concentrated on one area, and that are good value for money projects. And there's clearly tensions between all those things, which is why it's complicated, which is why we haven't done it yet.
Should congestion pricing or changes to pricing like tolling be taken into account early on in determining the projects that might happen?
We're doing some thinking about that. The challenge, of course, is that we don't have any congestion pricing schemes established yet, and obviously we've just passed the legislation, and thank you to your committee for all your work on that. But Auckland's working away with officials now on getting some stuff ready for 2026, 2027. But that's a bit down the line. So we're just doing some thinking about how we might integrate that policy, which I think everyone kind of supports broadly, into that work.
But it has previously been taken into account in modelling demand, benefits, costs of projects prior. So could it?
Yeah, it can be.
There's nothing stopping it from being included.
This is why we're doing some thinking about it. It can be looked at, but also I don't want to get ahead of where Auckland or maybe Wellington gets to. You know what I mean?
The changes to the discount rate and evaluation period have substantial impacts on the overall benefits and costs of the RONs. So you've extended the evaluation period to 60 years. And the discount rate's been lowered to 2% or even 1.5 far out in the future. The Ministry of Transport came in and briefed us on their long-term insights briefing and said it was extremely difficult and basically impossible to model travel demand 60 years in the future and even 30 years in the future. They said it was difficult. Actually, my main question is...
I mean, you're right. I didn't do the BCR thing, by the way. Treasury did that.
Yeah, sure. Well, is NZTA, is the intention for Ministry of Transport, NZTA and local authorities to now use the same lower discount rate and longer evaluation period across all projects?
That is a good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm not responsible for the discount rate thing. Treasury did that. Ruth, do you know what the rule is there?
We can come back this afternoon.
Can we put that on notice and come back? I actually don't know what the answer to that is. It's a good question. Okay. I mean, you're right about the 15, 60 year thing. I mean, who knows what it'll be like in 2075. I mean, flying cars, flying planes.
So we wouldn't be building roads until Simon.
So how do you think my local MP went grilling the bush?
Oh, I thought that was actually really, really well done.
He actually honestly answered them. This is something I do like about Chris Bishop is he listens to what is asked. If he doesn't know the answer, he actually admits to it. He doesn't go to talking points.
Yeah, and I liked that. I like that he obviously goes into these meetings very well prepared. It was funny watching him doing the stand up for the local body reforms last week, where he was shaking his head as he was reading it, like, I cannot believe that I am saying this, was the look that was on his face. And that's in contrast to how he was today in his comfort zone, talking about stuff that he agrees with, stuff that he knows.
Yeah. I wonder, will he be able to help fix this bridge?
Oh, Pikatahi. Oh, my gosh. Do you know, back in, will be 3 or 4 election periods ago, I started a petition to replace that bridge. Simon Bridges, who was not well named, I think, should be Simon No Bridges. He was our minister at the time and also, a reasonably local MP, high up in the National Party. Yeah. And I lobbied him hard, got a massive amount of local support and really tried so hard to get a new bridge. And that bridge, Pekatahi, is the only single lane bridge on the whole State Highway 2 network.
I thought there was one between Potiki and Gisborne.
No, that one's well been turned to 2 lanes years
Oh,
and years
okay.
ago. Probably maybe 8 years ago now. It's
Okay, and I haven't been on that road since 2013.
Yeah,
but
no,
I
they
remember
did an
driving along
amazing
there and
job.
suddenly came along to, whoa, there's a one-lane bridge.
Yeah, they used
Yeah, and
that.
so but the thing is, that one-lane bridge, like wasn't actually that long.
No, and our one-lane bridge is, that it was a rail bridge. It wasn't designed for the traffic volume that it has. It is. It seems these days that it's closed more than it's open. The traffic lights are often faulty. The deck is forever breaking down and having to be replaced. It is the only way out for those people living in the Taniatua area because, as we know, the Whakatane River comes up. As you're going into Whakatane, the road gets quite low there, so that floods. So you can't get through that way. And then, of course, everything that happens in the Waimana Gorge, the gorge slips and the river comes up, covers the road anyway. The only way out that people have is over that bridge. And it's a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah. But you're right about how the bridge has been there, so long. It's, it was never designed for it. And actually, when did it become State Highway 2? Because that wasn't where State Highway 2 originally went. It used to actually go through Whakatane back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. And then they had a big swap around. Well, that was just it was a rail bridge and then it became a rail car bridge.
Yeah.
And so
And then
when they rerouted the State Highway. Yeah, because they didn't want all the trucks going through Ohope.
Oh.
Yeah, so they made it so that you took a right-hand turn at Matata and went round, and so you didn't go through the township at Matata. You turn right and you go up and are out the back of at the back of Edgecombe, Kawerau, into Awakiri, and then turn into White Pine Bush there and follow that road around to the one-lane bridge.
Yeah. No, because I've seen old maps of where it used to go through Whakatane back at one point, but I mean, you can't find exactly which roads it went down through there. I mean,
well, it was Landing Road, so it went down the main road of Whakatane and then over into Ohope. But of course, all those people who live in Ohope, they don't want their houses to be shaken and everything. And so,
don't they have a heavy vehicle ban on the Ohope Road?
They do, because they don't want people going through there. And so all those people who live at Taniatua, like I visited people, and you sit there having a cup of tea and your teacup's shaking in the saucer. It is like their houses and their chimneys collapse and their houses get cracks in them because of the constant shake from the trucks going through. It's not right, not fair. I hate things that aren't fair, Sam.
No, fair enough. I mean, also what wasn't fair was the fact they never actually finished the railway line that should have been built.
Exactly.
Yeah, even though they did say a 1940s technology, it would have had to have had the equivalent of 3 Raremu spirals to make it work.
Whoa.
But now you probably wouldn't need that.
No.
You probably, rail technology has quite considerably moved on that we can actually go up steeper gradients now than what we could back in the 1908.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And I wonder how long it'll be before we have hydrogen-powered trains. That interests me. I mean, we're increasing what we're using hydrogen for. Hydrogen-powered trains will be quite interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still have more hope of the East Coast Main Trunk Line being electrified than hydrogen happening, to be honest. But that's probably partly because the electrification is proven technology.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then I see all of this stuff, we've still got a rail network. Our rail network is still really reliant, especially in the Bay of Plenty, still reliant on pine. Just like our port of Tauranga, 40% of its income is derived from exporting pine. Pine is a dead thing walking. It is just about done and dusted. It's going to have a massive, massive impact on the regional economy when it actually finally falls over and people get real about it.
So is pine itself, radiata pine, is that just basically not the best wood to...
Well, it's done. It doesn't have a future in this country. The Chinese gave us notice 5 years ago that whatever was in the ground now will be the last trees they took from us. They had a no-cut rule on their own forests, which are absolutely phenomenally huge.
Yeah.
They had a no-cut rule where they've allowed their forest to come up to maturity. They're at maturity now. It's cheaper for us to import framing timber from China than it is for us to process our own logs here. And they're already turning away shipments of our logs. And yet the pine lobby is still convincing people that planting pine trees is a good idea, because it's a roost, Sam. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and actually, Murupara is one area that's all pine trees. So is near Cooney.
Yeah, but so here's my issue with that, is that you've got these pine forests. People are claiming carbon credits for them.
Yeah.
They know that they're probably not going to get cut down. Whatever's been planted now is not going to get cut down. And so that leaves the landowner, which is mostly Māori, of course, because it's usually settlement land, with the problem of these trees that they can't cut down because they've got carbon credits assigned to them. They become a liability after they get to 30 and they stop sequestering carbon. And so you can't cut them down because then you have to pay back the carbon credits. You can't replant because there's no market for pine. You can't cut them down and sell them. So you've got nothing except this land that has no value. And then you've got the government passing legislation recently that enables them to take control of unproductive land. It is just
that sounds like so 1860s.
Oh, yes, that's exactly what I think. Oh, I'm like, I've heard this story before.
I'm trying to think. I remember Mr. Bocock, the social studies teacher at Parramatta College, teaching us that. He also sat there and said that part of the Taranaki land wars, he believes his family was, he's a descendant of the Pākehā side of that one, because he comes from the area. And
Wow.
he said, my family putting in pigs and ripping up pigs and all sorts of things. He definitely put a more personal spin to it. Yeah,
so there's there's a whole story going on in the background that people just need to make themselves aware about.
Yeah. Okay, let's get more from the bush.
Some of your voices.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, just interested to explore a little bit more about the opportunities that the RONS project offers, or program. I mean, you've been very forthright in explaining the cost issues, the timing issues, the capacity that's going to constrain New Zealand's ability to deliver those projects. But I'm interested in whether you've considered the RONS specification, the four-laning, grade separated interchanges, very wide lanes. Is actually necessary to deliver the benefits. Because when I look at Australia, even on the
Simon, we'll keep questions tight, please.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to explain the context.
I think
in Australia, they have they're quite open to 80 to 110 is the range. Some 2 lane, some 3 lane, some 4 lane. Is that something you've considered?
Yes, it is. And to be honest, we've actually moved away from the kind of 100 to 110 4-lane, gold-plated expressways already. So just taking a local example that I happen to know a little bit about, Tony de Granada, for example, we down to 60 to 80 there. So it's 60 to 80 and just 2. Is it 4 lanes or 2? It's 4 lanes, but it's 2, but it's 60 to 80. So it's that. So that means the gradient's lower, right? So it's significantly cheaper. So and actually, if you read all the investment cases, you could go through this with NZTA if you want later, but there's a range of different things. So kind of have done that. One of my, I'll just be honest with you, one of my frustrations in this is that it's just the high costs, and I have made it really clear to the Transport Agency that I want value for money in terms of delivery, and we do not need to gold plate things. We actually just need functional value for money roads, and where there's the ability to strip cost out, we should do that. Speed is part of that, but there's a range of different things. I mean, to be honest, the RMA reforms that I know you know a little bit about, Mr. Court, that will make a difference. Like some of the consent conditions that get attached to road projects drive significant cost that just flows through to someone paying. And so that all of these things make a difference. But to be honest, it's an enduring frustration for me, and we are not there yet. And I'm open to all sensible ideas as to how to strip cost out. I know the committee's done a little bit of work on this in the last few years already, and so we welcome your feedback on that.
It's interesting he's mentioned on Tony Granada Link Road. I think the new design's actually a lot more cost effective and a lot more user friendly road. The only thing is, will these tunnels on the new Petone Grenada Link Road be rated to have fuel tankers being allowed to go through them, considering that road would be the most direct route for the fuel tankers for the Lower North Island to use?
And there are other considerations as well. So if you think about, cost, what happens when we start solely focusing on the cost and we lose sight of the quality? We end up with roads that don't work. And unfortunately,
Transmission Gully, where that we've had to have the fact that the road has had to be redug up to put drainage pipes down the edges of the lane sunken in for drainage to get to basically drain the water out of the bed of the road, because it wasn't done at the point of construction.
Exactly.
And I mean, we've had 2 weekends where southbound lanes were completely closed. This weekend it's been scrapped. They're not doing it. Next weekend, all the northbound lanes were closed. And we did have the situation last Saturday where southbound Transmission Gully was closed, northbound State Highway 59 was closed because the northbound traffic because the southbound traffic had to be put down the northbound lane because of the slip by one of the on State Highway 59, which was by both the road and the rail tunnel. What a ironic place! And that literally caused chaos.
Yeah, and we've had the same in the Waikato Expressway as well. Just shoddy build, and when your focus becomes about
you're making me think about Rangariri.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally one where it's sort of like the road opened, and 8 years later they're having to rebuild it back up because it's sunk.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it's just, it's ridiculous. And that's what happens when there's 2 parts of that story. The first is when you don't actually consult with local people. Local people know, and they will tell you, this is what is going to happen to that.
Yeah.
And so when you have Wellington-centric decisions for communities that Wellington is not related to, isn't connected to, they make bad decisions.
Yeah.
And that's yet another one. And then when we start hearing cost cutting, I need to save money, then straight away we have reason to be very concerned about that.
I've got to say, with Transmission Gully, that wasn't cost cutting. That was a major budget overrun because the contract price was $850 million and ended up being $1.2 billion.
Whoa, was that the speed? Because weren't they really pushed to hurry up and get it done, weren't they? There was a lot of time pressure on them.
But that was when they were 2 years late.
Wow.
Because
was
the
that
original
COVID?
Yes, so the original opening date was meant to be in the middle of 2020.
And
it was pushed back, which is like, COVID was just one of the things. But they also had to redo the whole resource consent because Fletcher's put in a tender that got rejected because it was too expensive. An Australian company came in, put a resource application in to sit there and do for the work, and it underestimated the amount of dirt that had to come out, that it had to reapply for a new resource consent to sit down there and get to take out the additional dirt they didn't calculate for. Whereas Fletcher's calculated, in the tender, they actually calculate that price because the Fletcher's price is not far from what the total cost ended up being.
One of the things I'm concerned about when I hear Chris Bishop really excited about the changes to the RMA is, yes, it may speed up some things. Yes, there will be less red tape, but remembering that that's not regional council's fault, that's from government policy.
Yeah.
But what's concerning me is that there is a real, if you put the changes to the RMA in the same bucket of information as the fast track, then you start to see a picture that gets a little bit alarming. What my prediction is that we're going to start seeing a lot of environmental destruction with no requirement for anyone to clean up the mess afterwards. And who cleans up the mess? We do. We're the taxpayers. We clean up the mess.
Yeah, and the regional council actually makes sure that they're not
exactly. And so that's part of the story. Change the RMA, get rid of the people who actually administer it and watch everything and make sure everything's okay, and then bring in the fast track.
Have a nice, lovely thing with Margaret Murray Bench on there, who wants regional council scrapped so Western Bay District Council can get the shares in Ports of Toto.
I know, right? And oh my gosh, it's so obvious that you can see what's happening there. And then when I heard that the government also wants to, they're looking at the possibility of putting MPs in charge, because they're going to put in this independent board. They're talking about putting MPs in. So you know what will happen. First thing they'll do is they'll sign off the port going to the government. Government will sell it, privatise the port, bank the money, and the government has $2.5 billion in the bank, and all of the, like our ports subsidise our regional council rates, but it's also the direct investment by the ports into the community gone.
Yeah, and actually, and was it, Ports Tauranga actually puts a lot more, they get that, well, they're a much busier port than Centreport is. But it would be our one, or Ports of Little, was it Ports of Littleton? Is that what they call that one down there?
Yeah.
But I think that's another one that's owned by, I think that one's also owned by ECAN.
Yeah, and then Otago is owned by the regional council as well, and so it's a phenomenal investment. So and then so you take away all of that money that comes from the port into the community, and then you put a rates cap on. So this is how the story will go. Put a rates cap on that stops the councils from being able to actually do their job. Justification for the government to sell off all of the services of the council to private, and that's it. And then we are so stuffed.
Who owns the Tauranga Airport, the Whakatane Airport, and the Rotorua Airport? Are they owned by the respective city?
They're owned by their district councils.
Okay, yeah, and like Wellington, it's a third owned by Wellington City Council and 2/3 owned by Infratil. Yeah, at the moment. Yeah,
ours are owned by the district councils, and I think Tauranga is fully owned by the district council. I can't be 100% sure, but I'm 99.9% sure, because I know that Rotorua is owned by their DC and ours is by ours.
Yeah, and imagine if Whakatane was forced to sell it, what will actually happen to the airport?
Oh, it would be gone. Nobody would want to buy it. They'd turn it into a housing estate. That'll be the end of the airport. We wouldn't have one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and actually, I grew up in an area where we actually had a privately owned airport, which was Paraparaumu Airport. That is privately owned, and every time it ends up being on the market, people call out for the council to buy it to stop it being turned into housing, because we actually have a very good flying school in Paraparaumu.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And we've got a flying school in Whakatane as well, and it is useful for other things like helicopters land in there, and the Air Force does touch and go, and the big, that great big plane they've got, the
Hercules.
Yeah, they do touch and goes in it.
Oh, okay. I wonder, could it land a Hercules there?
Yeah, they don't land it. They just come in, and it's amazing watching it come in because it's so flippin' big, and our town's not very big. So it just comes in, touches the runway, and straight off again.
Oh, I wonder if that's the Air Force bit of let's help Whakatane Airport out today. Let's do a touch and go, because every time the planes do touch and goes, they do pay a fee for that.
Yeah, and I imagine it's a big fee.
For the Hercs it would be, but I was going to say the fee ain't that much. The touch and go fee is a lot cheaper than the full on landing fee. Now, I don't know what it is now, but for the airports to do a touch and go at Auckland International Airport was $1,000 in 2008.
But what's really cool about the touch and goes is that there's this preschool right by the airport, and the little kids get to see these massive planes coming in. It's so impressive.
That's the fun part. Yes, I remember. You sometimes saw them at Paraparaumu Airport when they did touch and goes. I'm trying to remember from the ATC days. Yeah. I
didn't know you were an ATC kid, Sam.
Oh yes, 49 Squadron.
Oh, well done.
Yeah. Got it there. I've been on, 4 Defence Force bases in my life.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's good old days. So yeah. It's 4. And it was it the 3 Air Force bases plus Linton? Yeah. I never got onto any other Defence Force bases. Yeah, but yes, been to Hakia a few times, and then Dad later on worked at Hakia. Ironically, one person he used to have a bit to deal with was MP for Otiki Tim Costley.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh yeah, it's a small world.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Okay, let's see more from the bush, and let's see if James actually answers some questions.
My question is to the Associate Minister of Transport.
Very good. Oh, very good.
So we know that people are very frustrated at flight being cancelled all the time. What have you done to address these issues?
That's a good question. Yeah, people are frustrated, especially those in the regions. So earlier this year, we announced some funding from the Regional Infrastructure Fund for regional air connectivity. So that's to enable regional airlines to invest in their own infrastructure, debt recovery, leasing arrangements to provide some security to some of those regional routes. We've invested in interlining arrangements, the technology to support those, and the first one of those launched between Air Chathams and Air New Zealand in Whakatane earlier this year. It's actually due to go online probably this month. And there's an ability to expand that. So then you, as a regional customer, you're buying one ticket to get from Whakatane to Auckland, Wellington to Timaru, say, rather than having to go through 2 or 3 airlines. So those are probably a couple of initial steps. And then there's the broader aviation action plan, which looks at the industry and the sector as a whole. And it's looking at things like, to Minister Bishop's other portfolio around infrastructure, what are the long-term 30-year infrastructure needs for airports? And what does aviation and air connectivity look like across the country?
Have you looked into the workforce issues?
Yeah, so workforce is another one. We have a shortage of pilots and engineers, and also it can be a challenge to find space for our air traffic controllers in the system. Again, the Aviation Action Plan puts a lot of focus on workforce development, and there's a report due back from Ringapora towards the end of the year about how we could possibly amend the pilot qualification system to speed up the training, but also what can we do to make more hours available to pilots, because one of the barriers to becoming a commercial pilot is that you get your ticket and you do 200 hours, but then to be able to fly, you actually need 500-600 hours. And where do you get those hours in New Zealand? A lot of people will choose to do that in their private time while they're working outside the sector, and others may be forced to go overseas to get those hours. So we're looking at those kind of issues as well.
Sure. Thank you.
Tracy.
Also on the,
Well, it's great that he mentions, now, Air Chathams is technically, we claim Air Chathams as our own in Wellington.
Yeah.
Your local
we claim
airport.
them in Whakatane as our own as well.
Yeah, it's like, yes, Wellington claims it considering, the Rogatai electorate does include the Chathams. It's quite funny that our local MP actually has to fly on a plane to get to one part of her electorate.
Oh, that's interesting.
Considering, being Julia Genta who rides a bike everywhere, but I mean, she's open to the fact that, her only way to get to the Chathams is flying.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And she actually enjoys going over there and get to see her predecessor, who's now the CEO of the local council.
Well, I'm hopeful that that this investment, I'm quite critical of this government, obviously, and I have many reasons, as everybody else does, but there's something good that they've done is this new ability that Air Chathams has to link in with Air New Zealand. We have been asking them to do that since Air New Zealand dumped us and Air Chathams said they'd look after us.
Yeah.
All we've asked of Air New Zealand is, can you please find some way to work with Air Chathams so that we have connectivity with the rest of the world?
I mean, code sharing has been a thing that, like, Air New Zealand Qantas has had code sharing for a long time. They had it with Virgin. So why can't it be why can't it be with Air Chathams?
Because if they make it easier for Air Chathams to be successful, then they lose their own regional routes. So at the moment, I drive my car to Tauranga. I leave it parked at the Tauranga airport. I'm away for 2 weeks at the moment. Yeah. So my car will be sitting at Tauranga airport for 2 weeks, charging me $25 a day for parking. And I did both of my flights out of and back to Tauranga. So when this new thing comes online with Air Chathams, I will be flying with Air Chathams, not paying for my parking, being able to fly back into my own town, and it's just going to be so much better.
And have Jack come and pick you up.
Oh, yeah, because he's driving now.
Yeah, well, I kind of have a gut feeling he was driving before the 16th birthday.
Well, yes, he actually was, but not illegally on farms and things like that. Yeah. But, and he's obviously got to get his restricted yet, so.
Yeah. But it means, Jack can actually pick you up, not having to rely, paying, $25 a day for the car to be parked in Tauranga.
Exactly.
I need to look after it.
But it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt Air New Zealand when Air Chathams is actually able to deliver a proper service to our area of the region, because none of us will need to drive to Tauranga or Rotorua to fly anymore.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that could also come out of it is it's not just the Westport, I think, is another Air Chathams route.
And Whanganui as well.
Yeah. So quite a few places will actually, it will benefit with the code sharing. Well, actually, the code sharing might actually sit there and help boost sales to Paraparaumu Airport, because that's also an Air Chathams route as well.
Which is so good. And so that, credit where credit's due. Most of what this government has done is unfathomable, but that's actually a good thing.
And I think it's possibly because you have got an MP from Timaru
Yeah.
who's in charge of that. Yeah, because it's become more apparent when he got the role. That
Yes.
was one of his focuses, was actually dealing with code sharing, because he is from an airport that is literally, like, I think Timaru, I think they only fly from Wellington and Auckland. I don't think you got anywhere within the South Island, but it's not logical anyway. I mean, why would you want to fly from Christchurch to Timaru?
Yeah, or even from Dunedin to Timaru.
I mean, we used to have flights from Palmerston North to Wellington.
Holy, that's so funny.
You know, which doesn't really, like, it's grey line where it stacks up or not. Like, it makes sense to blend them in Nelson because you've got a body of water in the middle.
Yeah.
But Palmerston North to Wellington, like, it just made no sense.
Well, even our flight from Tauranga to Auckland's only 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it's actually like a decent chunk. And I gather
but it's such a long road trip. Like, the road trip is 2 hours.
Yeah.
The flight's 20 minutes because the road goes all over.
Yeah. And that's if you haven't got roadworks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
exactly got roadworks every time I went up to Karetai. Oh, I was stuck at the stop go for waiting for like 10 minutes because they had to do this.
Only 10? You're so lucky. We had an hour on Matata the other day. A whole hour of just sitting there. I went for a little walk, talked to other people in other cars, gave people.
What the hell happened? It led to an hour.
Hey?
What led it to an hour? Because the law.
They're just doing resurfacing. So they and it went. So we were about halfway along Matata and the other side of the road, because they were blocking both sides and resurfacing a whole section. And so we're halfway along Matata, about around where the Murphy's motor camp is.
Yeah.
And the queue of traffic went all the way past Matata on the Whakatane side.
Holy heck.
It was crazy. And it just and so they were doing that because, they've been doing that nighttime closing, which causes a whole other set of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's that rock and a hard place. And there's no alternative route in that area.
No, there is not.
Well, the alternative route is via Rotorua.
Yeah, which is
the real alternative route. I mean, there's a couple of gravel roads, but reality is you can't send trucks along the gravel roads. You have to send them via Rotorua.
Yeah.
And out past Rotorua is not exactly a fast road.
It is not, and it shouldn't be, which is why I was really happy when NZTA decided to make it 80 Ks for most of that, because that is a killer road. It is so horrible, and it's a lot of swampy roads, so it's really uneven. It's all over the place, and a lot of like dodgy corners and scary bits and way too many loonies on the road. So it was really good having it at 80 Ks. It took all the pressure off.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's hear some more from see if it's the Bush or
here we are, Skilled New Zealand workers. Minister Wholesome is seeking to replace the New Zealand flagged MV Buffalo with cheaper foreign flagged vessel, which, as you'll be aware, puts 32 skilled Kiwi seafarers out of work just after Christmas, 3 days after Christmas. We would contend that approving this undermines our maritime law, our coastal shipping capabilities, and actually, quite frankly, the government's own promise to put New Zealand workers first. It's a bit of a test, therefore, of whether Kiwi jobs are more than just a slogan. Where are you up to in that process? Has the exemption application been approved?
No, the decision on the application hasn't been made yet. It's still currently being considered. Can't say too much more on that because it is under consideration, but I'm expecting a decision to be made in the next week or so.
And are those things that you're taking, those issues that I've prefaced, are those all issues that you're very aware of and taking into account in terms of making that?
Yes, that would be a fair summary. We've got to make a decision in line with what the statute requires us and the relevant considerations. But those are certainly factors that I'm aware of, both as minister, but also, my role as a local member of parliament. Those of us who have ports are all very much enthusiastic about our seafaring industry being very, very strong. So it's something we support.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Minister,
that was quick about ports. I don't know what they're on about on that one, unless it's about foreign flagged vessels.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. But I think that she raised a really good point. This government has made all of these promises around prioritising Kiwi workers, prioritising regional decisions, and this is just yet another example of them backing out on that.
Yeah. Oh, let's see what's more up from, see if Uncle Andy ends up asking a question.
in your annual report for 2024-2025 after priority 1, which is about economic growth and productivity, is improving road safety.
Yes.
I'm just curious on whether both priorities can go hand in hand in your view, and if so, what has your ministry done in the last year to improve road safety, and what are the results?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think they can go hand in hand. Obviously, we want a growth enhancing transport system, but we also want it to be safe. That's obviously important. So we're making good progress. I mean, obviously, probably the biggest thing is the Parliament's third attempt to roll out a roadside drug, oral fluid drug testing regime. So we've now approved the devices, and we're doing a launch on the 15th of December, which is not far away, actually, now I think about it. So that's good progress. I'm cautiously optimistic about it. The police have significantly lifted their breath testing numbers, with the caveat, obviously, around the news that I think everyone's aware of around some of the discrepancies, which is of concern to me, obviously, and there's a process underway around that. But notwithstanding that discrepancy, there has been an uplift, and certainly anecdotally, I get quite a lot of feedback from people that they're noticing more breath testing happening, which is in and of itself is quite an important thing, because people think that they might get breath tested on the way home. They think again about that extra drink and stuff, so that does make a difference. So we're making good progress. We're not there yet. The road toll is too high. I want to see it come down, obviously. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Julianne.
Just coming back to that.
Oh, that's interesting mentioning about the drug testing part.
Yeah, that is really interesting, and I'm fascinated to see what comes next in the corridor around medicinal cannabis. And while I absolutely do not at all promote people, using any sort of mind-altering drug and then driving, it is cannabis stays in the system for a really long time, well after the effect has worn off. And I can see that this is going to not only be problematic for those people, but it's going to be problematic for the government, because it becomes an equity issue yet again.
Yes, because the people who will challenge the system tend to be those with the dollars, while those that don't challenge it won't have the dollars.
Exactly, and they're just going to end up suffering, losing licenses. And you know what happens? People end up with some sort of infringement, or they lose a license, and then they are forced into a position where they usually will continue to drive, but without a license, and it just begins to spiral into despair.
Yeah, it's Let's see what my local MP's got to say.
Roads of national significance, and you mentioned the trade-offs with other parts of the Crown's investment in hospitals or other types of infrastructure. The Infrastructure Commission said earlier this week to us at this committee that they had not received the roads of national significance projects as part of the IPP assessment, which is of course a really excellent system that your government and you have initiated to identify project readiness and improve investment. Given the large amount of likely Crown money that's going to be going into some of these, can we expect them to be subject to the same process other infrastructure projects are?
Possibly. A couple of things I'd say is, one is the IPP program is in its infancy, so we've just had the release of the round 2 results, and it's currently a voluntary program, and that's partly deliberate, because we want to get some runs on the board and see how it goes, and feedback is it's pretty good. It's not so much about project readiness. In fact, it's almost the opposite. It's more about stage 1, the first gateway is there a problem, and actually in and of itself that's quite a useful kind of thought process to make people go through, is there a problem here? Is the solution you've come up with actually a good one, and then is it deliverable? So and nothing's got actually stage 3 approval yet. In fact, most people apply at stage 2 through the IPP because they think they've got this great idea, and actually they're being told, well, we're not sure about that as the solution, but you've identified a problem, so go back and do some extra work on, and that analytical rigor is good. It's a good thing. So, but it's in its infancy, where it's not even a year old, and NZTA of course has its, which you can go through with them. They've got their own. It's a Crown entity, and they've got their own approval processes around delivery and readiness and value for money and all that stuff. So they're kind of separate processes, and in time we may get to a position where there's some involvement there. But not every Crown agency is going through the IPP process at the moment. It's a voluntary thing. Defence has put some stuff in from memory, but education hasn't. Health hasn't. There might be a couple of health ones, but yeah.
Okay, one more from Julianne, then Tangi.
Given that the two most expensive roads are in urban areas, East West Link and the Wellington projects, which are extremely high cost per kilometre.
No, I think Northland's more expensive, but yeah.
No, per kilometre.
Oh, per kilometre.
Per kilometre,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah, well, it's
vastly
expensive to
more
build in urban
expensive.
areas, yeah.
Yeah, and given that there is the potential, and the Infrastructure Commission has suggested congestion pricing, and pricing in urban areas might be a better solution. Is that going to be something that the government considers? Because I guess what you've just said about problem definition,
Yeah.
that can't really be applied to the RONs because they've just been listed as a list of projects in the GPS, and so there isn't that
Yeah.
problem definition and openness
Yeah, but
to.
you'll notice that both the both State Highway 1 Wellington improvements and the East West Link, both of which have long histories that you're very familiar with, they're both different projects to what they were in the past. East West Link's been completely redone. So, is there a problem in that part of Auckland? Yes, there is. It's extremely congested. It's a major logistics and freight hub. It's a massive hub of economic growth, and it is constrained because of the configuration of the state highway system. So something has to be done in that part of Auckland.
But would congestion pricing
Well,
make
well,
it?
well, possibly, and I'll just repeat what I said before, which is that we're thinking about that in a way that I think you would appreciate.
Thank you. Just a short question around.
Well, that pesky East West Link has been brought up again.
Oh boy, that story never goes away.
I know that, but like it was nicknamed after the Sochi, the Sochi Olympics, the Winter Olympics. Said you could have paved the road in caviar, and it was rated more expensive than what was nicknamed the Caviar Highway in Russia. And I'd hate to know what the cost will be now. I mean, I've seen some of the designs do fix up an anomaly at the Mount Wellington interchange on the some motorway in Auckland, and it is a bit of an issue because it was bridges that were built in the 50s or 60s, where you've got 3 lanes, exit only, reduced down to 2 lanes, cross a bridge that's so old, and then back up to 3 lanes. And that actually causes a lot of havoc.
It does.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like all the bridges on that intersection have the narrow bridge warning signs. It's not just the motorway ones; all of them do. It's the only one that I think of on the Auckland motorway which actually has like every bridge in the facility is narrow. Like I wonder if that was like one of the earliest sections of the Auckland motorway.
Oh, it probably was because the vehicles were so much narrower then.
It's like the Mount Victoria Tunnel. Like I've driven a truck through there, and the lanes are only just 2.5 meters wide, or 2.7 or something. Like I drove a truck it's 2 meters wide, or it's a bit more than 2, and you're like literally having to watch at the bottom your bottom mirrors on the wings, and just making sure you can see the 2 lines to make sure they stay lined up.
That doesn't give you much wriggle room, does it?
No, and try having me drive in one direction and I have buses coming in the other direction. It's like, okay, it's like all of us are experienced enough. Like, I won't even take the coffee cart for it because of how narrow the tunnel is. People like Dad said to me, it's like, aren't we dropping the coffee cart at Rongata? I was like, I don't drive through the Mount Tunnel with the coffee cart back. Oh, okay. So literally drove through Newtown, up through Newtown, right up to where I drop it off. And Dad was just like, because he wasn't expecting that. He was just expecting me to, drive off and head through the tunnel because that was the quickest way. But
not the safest way.
No, not the safest way. But Constable Street in Newtown isn't better, but at least there's room to pass. But I'll be honest with you, the vehicles that I have that are a problem coming in the opposite direction are four-wheel drives, or as nicknamed Mawera tractors, and not the urban buses on the bus routes. The urban buses seem to pass each other no problem.
Do you know, Jack will tell you that when he did his bike ride to Wellington, that it was the trucks and trailers and those big vehicles that he was the most concerned about, and they gave him the less grief. They were respectful of him, they gave him heaps of room, and they looked after him on the road. But those guys in those blimmin' big, crazy, expensive
Mawera tractors.
And the Mawera tractors. You've got a much more polite name for them than I have. I won't tell you what mine is on here. Starts with a W, rhymes with tanker.
So it's a Wallaka dropping the middle A.
Yeah. And anyway, one of those. So, but those guys were just horrible. Jack thought that they were trying to get their wing mirrors as close to him as they could without hitting him. That's how it felt. It was awful.
Oh, it's amazing how they're so precious about other car wing mirrors, but not the. Like, I would believe anyone who wants to drive an Iranian tractor should have to have a Class 2 driver's license.
Yeah. They
You know,
bloody
because
should.
I can tell you right now,
They bloody should,
someone
Sam. You're
will walk
exactly
past
right.
the chest.
Yep.
Someone
Yeah,
will
and
pass the
actually,
test.
and have to and actually go and have some psychometric testing too to make sure that I'm not a complete
Well,
horrible person.
Well, you do have to do a medical. So like, put it this way: because I have a Class 2 driver's license, I have to go through medicals every 10 years to make sure that I'm fit to have it.
Yes.
You know, yeah. So it actually gets checked over by your doctor. It does not get checked over by the lovely person at the AA or the VTNZ.
Well, and I think about what I go through to have my firearms license. I have to have my doctor has to be consulted. My 2 referees have to be consulted. A firearm safety officer comes out
Oh,
to make
you
sure
have
that
one
I'm
as
not
well.
a crazy person with a gun. And but those guys are crazy people with blimmin' death machines, you know? That's what
Yes.
I've told Jack, you know, like I say to Jack all the time when he's driving the car, you are driving a 1-ton death machine, buddy.
Oh, yes, and he's just gone to get the firearms license as well.
Yeah, he just got his he's just gone through, he's done his safety course now for firearms.
Yeah. It's yeah. Okay, let's see what more comes from the bush.
And affordability, but also transparency with the RONs.
Yep.
Sometimes Wakotahi are actually very good at putting stuff on the website in terms of individual projects. That doesn't necessarily seem to be the case for each of the RONs in terms of the level of detail. I appreciate that you're going through not a prioritisation process, but a scheduling sort of process. Is it your expectation that the agency would provide as much detail around changes to those aspects as these RONs are progressed?
Yeah, and I think all the stuff's online now, right?
We've done summaries and we're planning to release the full investment cases at the time.
I think some of them are online already.
Some of them are already on.
Some of them are already online. Yeah, I mean,
Well-
the short answer is yes. There's nothing to hide here. Like, they should just be online.
Just following up on that, there is a slight issue because, and this is what happened with the tolling situation last year, where there was a consultation process out and then some information, albeit redacted, appears halfway through a consultation process. So, you know, is the government committed to making sure that when you open these processes, all the information is available so that people can have an informed sense of participating in the process?
I mean, I wasn't the minister when that particular example was being referred to, so I can't comment on that. But the short answer is yes. I mean, you know, NZTA is a massive organisation. They have thousands of employees and regional offices, spend quite a lot of time actually engaging with local communities around projects. Obviously, sometimes that will be better than other times. No one's perfect, but I think they do a pretty good job of engaging at a regional level with councils and stakeholders. I hate that word, but you know what I mean?
Public commitment.
Yeah.
Look,
The short answer is yes.
If you can indulge me, I'll ask one question for you
Yes,
as well.
please, Mr. Chair.
Which is just in terms, we had yesterday particularly around the designation process, and I know you're also a minister in the RMA side of things, and that is the length of time it takes to put land together to do a major project. In this instance, it was Kiwi Rail, but the same will be true sometimes for NZTA. I see a lot of it back there. The ability for agencies who want to do a project or provide for a project at some stage in the future, and you see obviously the pipeline, to be able to do that and not sort of get the pressure of going, hey, you can't sustain that designation for a long period of time.
So I mean, this is a bit different hat now, but there's some changes we've already made to that through RMA reform, and you'll see in the resource management replacement regime some further changes. I think everyone kind of acknowledges the status quo is not great. Just a slight caveat that you're often dealing with private property, and everyone's got a bright idea. Often it doesn't involve land that they own, so you've got to. Infrastructure is really important, but you are dealing with private property, and obviously there are Public Works Act implications down the line at various points. So, yeah, we're designations and corridor protection is important, but you've got to have some clear tram lines about which will operate. But we are going to make some changes there. In fact, we've already done some changes.
And look, if I can ask one other, which will also get asked later on, probably of NZTA, which is fire rates for. And it's just obviously now the pressure is going to go on councils in terms of the amount of rates, caps, and so on. But fire rates, particularly for the smaller rural councils, are going to be really, really important, because obviously if you change those, all of a sudden their rates base is affected significantly. So I just wondered how those two are going to play.
Yes, that is true. But what I would say is that councils should spend the money allocated to them already. So we have a significant underspend at the moment across the 3-year National Land Transport Program period on local road improvements. So this is money that has been allocated through the National Land Transport Plan to councils to spend, co-funded by central government, NZTA, with local councils, and a number of projects have been deferred, delayed, cancelled, pushed back, rescoped. in any number of different scenarios, such that there is money available, contractors ready and willing to do the work, and people willing to get out there and do it. And for a variety of reasons that I find frankly unacceptable, councils are not getting on with it. So sometimes people say, I mean, everyone's under funding pressure, sure, but when there's money there and there are projects that are listed in the National Land Transport Plan as probable, as in the 3 years we're going to do them, to councils, get on with it.
We will follow that one up.
Sure.
Thank you very much, both of you. Really appreciate it.
It's quite interesting he says that, but I mean, has the council actually got the money to fund their part of it before it goes ahead?
Honestly, if Chris Bishop was sitting there in your seat next to you right now, he would be getting a piece of my mind. He would be certainly getting the sharp end of my tongue. He's being so disingenuous there. He knows that he has reduced the amount of funding to councils by such a significant margin that all of the money that was allocated to those projects, first of all, the costs for everything went up. But even aside from that, then on top of the costs going up, government reduced the amount that they gave to the community.
Yeah.
So he's saying, do your roads, but do it with less money.
Yeah,
and also, now we're going to give you a rates cap.
Well, it's actually interesting. He actually, in order to get a particular, so there was a particular pedestrian bridge in for the Melling interchange that was proposed and funded, then was cancelled when Simeon Brown was the minister because of the changes in there. And as local MP, while wearing another hat, managed to reallocate funds that were meant to be for stormwater infrastructure upgrades with the assistance of building Kaingaroa homes, has been reallocated to build this pedestrian bridge that got taken out of a project because it didn't meet what the current government's flavour of the month was, and then has been put back in. Now, I've got no problem with the fact he's actually put the pedestrian bridge back in. The pedestrian bridge will actually be much better than having the people from the New Melling train station working on the New Melling bridge to get there. I mean, I've walked across the current Melling bridge to get to the current Melling train station. It is a bit daunting.
Yeah.
It is a bit daunting on that 3 lane and not particularly wide lane bridge.
Well, he's sitting there being all bullshit and incensed and build your roads, but do it with less money than we told you we'd give you, and we've cut your budgets, and now we're going to rates cap you, and everything's gone up. And he's talking about all these people that are supposedly sitting there ready and waiting to do the work. Actually, we know that there's a massive shortage of people because they all buggered off to Australia.
Yeah. Well, yes, if these people didn't bugger off to Australia, unemployment rate would be near 10%.
Exactly. And so he's actually just being he's being super disingenuous there. I am actually, in fact, of all the things he said tonight that have annoyed me, that is the thing that has annoyed me the most so far. I'm keeping the so far in place because I'm sure there'll be more. He's quite annoying.
Oh, we've finished with the bush, but there's the foreign, we got Todd McClay up next, which is...
Oh, God. From bad to worse. I used to like Todd.
Yeah, and let me guess, he's just kind of gone a bit downhill.
Well, he has, because he told me something that was really, really important. One of the most important bits of information that I know about trade agreements came from him. But he has not put he knows how bad the regulatory standards bill is. He knows how bad it is to take the Treaty of Waitangi out of our legislation for our trade agreements and our increased risk of ISDS court, and where our little economy cannot sustain that. And that Todd McClay taught me that years ago. I've never forgotten it, but apparently he has.
Yeah, well, he's been strong-armed into it.
It's sad.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to Todd McClay, and he is talking about this in his capacity of... I'll have to scroll down the list. This is annoying when you get some more Della ministers towards the end of the week. Wednesday, yeah. This is what happens when you do Scrutiny Week specials and you go through there and everyone wants to stir the pot with, say, a Nicola Willis or a David Seymour. Like, they keep always outwinning in the polls. Yeah, so he will be doing it in his capacity as the Associate Foreign Affairs Minister.
Oh, that's interesting.
But, yeah, I mean, he's still the Minister of Trade.
Yeah.
Oh, and turn on... So what's happening?
Not sure.
Like, I'd like to know what these MPs are looking at.
More seats, being in a bigger office.
Not as many as the Fiends.
Still coming.
Because it's the most interesting committee, there's nothing else going on there.
There's a chair here. So one of them.
Oh, so
No,
the cheers.
again, by the look of it.
Sam, come off the table.
Comes to the stage. Here it is.
Might be needed.
Yeah, and I'll go down there and ask questions.
Next year.
Very good. All right. Good morning, Minister. Welcome along to the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee. We are very excited to be conducting the annual review for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade today. And we welcome your presence with us this morning for 30 minutes to give us some oversight in your role as Associate Minister on behalf of the Minister, but obviously also as Minister of Trade and Investment too. I'm sure you have questions. So I'd like to hand over to you for some introductory comments, and then there will be questions from members around the room.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, and committee members. I'm pleased to appear before the committee and I extend apologies from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, who's unable to join us today. Advancing and protecting New Zealand's national interests is more contested, fragmented and volatile world requires determination and focus. Over the past year, the government has responded to an increasingly challenging international environment with energy, resolve and with hard work. We have sustained a high tempo of international engagement at senior levels across government, focused on advancing the security and prosperity for all New Zealanders. Minister Peters' travel, along with that of the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defence, the Minister of Climate Change and myself, has involved 88 high-level visits to 43 countries over the past year. This outward engagement was supplemented by hosting 62 high-level visits to New Zealand by foreign leaders and ministers, showcasing the best our country has to offer and what we can offer to the world. Collectively, this investment in building the international connections at a political level is a clear demonstration of our partners that New Zealand has a contribution to make and a role to play on the global stage. These relations also set the platform for advancing the government's ambitions across foreign policy, trade and development cooperation. Mr. Chair, the past year has seen strong delivery against priorities set out in the government's foreign policy reset. In the face of economic and geopolitical headwinds, the foreign policy reset ensures our resources are sent in the direction of efforts that are aligned in pursuing outcomes that matter to the security and prosperity of New Zealand. Notwithstanding these headwinds, we have delivered real progress across all key lines of effort in the reset. Priority relations in South and Southeast Asia have been elevated through the comprehensive strategic partnerships with ASEAN as a whole and with Vietnam and Singapore. The relationship with India has seen a step change with enhanced political and defence engagement, and good progress has been made on the bilateral FTA negotiations following its launch only just in March of this year. Similar in North Asia, the relationship with the Republic of Korea has recently been bolstered with the conclusion of a comprehensive strategic partnership, and high-level engagement with China, including the Prime Minister's visit in 2025, has reinforced that important relationship. There's been increased effort in supporting a resilient and prosperous Pacific, demonstrated through delivery of over $570 million in development cooperation funding in the year 24-25. Aligned with our Pacific partners' priorities, continued investment in Pacific regional institutions and humanitarian assistance, including following the December 2024 earthquakes in Vanuatu. We have reinvigorated our relationship with like-minded partners, including through enhanced political engagement in Canberra, in London, Washington and Ottawa, sustained engagement in many lateral groups like the Indo-Pacific Four, and in contributions to collective security challenges, including supporting Ukraine's self-defense in the face of Russia's ongoing aggression following their illegal invasion. We've targeted our multilateral engagement on global issues that matter most to New Zealand, including improving international stewardship of oceans, promoting reform of key multilateral institutions, upholding the Antarctic Treaty System, and contributing to global climate action and to disarmament and non-proliferation efforts. And we've strengthened our international trade architecture in support of the government's goal of achieving a significant step change in export value over the next decade. A new trade agreement with UAE, United Arab Emirates, and an updated ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand agreement entered into force, and negotiations were concluded with the Gulf Cooperation Council. Our focus on full implementation of recent trade agreements with the UK and the EU has delivered significant growth in exports into those markets, creating more opportunities and delivering greater returns for New Zealand. And I want to recognise support across the House for many of those agreements, including the early entry into force of the EU agreement and the significant benefits delivering for all New Zealanders, particularly exporters. We've also demonstrated leadership and creativity in working to sustain the international rules-based trading
system, which remains under challenge, contributing to the establishment of the Future Investment and Trade Partnership and advancing opportunities for deeper engagement between the EU and the CPTPP members. These outcomes all represent serious progress on the ambition of the reset and reflecting the strong leadership and direction the government is bringing to its international engagement. The past year has also required resilience and agility to respond to pressing challenges beyond the reset priorities. For example, emergency responses following natural disasters in the Pacific and arising from conflicts in the Middle East have required the evacuation of New Zealand citizens from dangerous situations offshore. In the trade and economic domain, the government has worked hard to support New Zealand businesses in navigating uncertainty, including through the impact of US tariffs. This will remain a priority and was positive. It was positive to see a step in the right direction last month with the removal of additional tariffs on a range of New Zealand agricultural products in the US. Being positioned to manage uncertainty is the reality we face in a more challenged world. Advancing our priorities and defending our interests is a collective effort across government, including my cabinet colleagues and a broad range of New Zealand agencies who all play an important role in helping deliver on the ambition of the reset. We enhance our influence and effectiveness in the world by working collectively to address cross-cutting challenges and develop coordinated approaches, and by using all levers at our disposal. Mr. Chair and committee members, thank you for the time today. I know that you have some hours before you with officials. I have the Chief Executive of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Ed Corrie, here with me today, and the senior leadership team, including Vangelis Vitalis, who will help me in the trade area, but they're very happy to hear from you.
Does this sound like Todd?
Let me tell you about what Todd said to me. So about, oh my gosh, I'd say 10 or more years ago, I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and he was coming to talk to us about trade agreements. And I said to him, do you ever get worried about ISDS courts, Investor State Dispute Services courts? So the way those work is so someone like Philip Morris, the tobacco company,
yes.
They rely on being able to sell their product in our country to be able to take money. If we legislate in a way that reduces the amount of money that they can make being in our country, then they can fall back to our trade agreement and they can take us to a settlement court, and they can take us for a lot of money for inhibiting their ability to make money. The only country in the world that has a treaty that specifies that the treaty has to come before any trade agreement is this country. So Todd said, nah, I don't worry about that. We've got the treaty. The treaty is this incredible barrier of protection that means that it is highly unlikely that we will ever end up in an investor state dispute court, because we are not allowed to put anything above the treaty and our obligations under the treaty to look after people. And if we have to legislate to look after the people, then that comes first. So fast forward to David Seymour's reign of tyranny, and David Seymour comes up with the Regulatory Standards Bill, which has now been passed, that completely excludes any reference to the Treaty of Waitangi. So that amazing bit of protection that we have that no one else has immediately becomes eroded and loses its power. Because now if Philip Morris took us to an investor state dispute court, then they would simply say, the court would say, well, actually, New Zealand, you've got this regulatory standards bill that you've passed with no reference to the treaty. It is very clear to us that the treaty is a tokenism only and actually doesn't carry any weight at all. Therefore, we will proceed with this hearing. And so Todd, who was such a champion for the treaty 10 years ago, has now become another one of the people who seems to have developed amnesia about the importance of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my Todd story.
That's all right. I'm just wondering, did you have much? I'm just going to find out the name of his father, because he was the MP for Waikiri Moana at one stage. His father is Roger McClay.
Yes, Roger McClay was a government minister as well. He was in the game for a long time.
Yeah. So he was the MP right up until 1996 when MMP kicked
I don't know how much longer Todd's going to be around for. Like, I thought he was going to stand down at the last election. You've got Tanya sitting there, as elected mayor of Rotorua.
You think she's in the waiting game to
national,
try and take that seat?
Yes, she will. I imagine at some point Todd will stand down and Tanya will take it.
I still think I'm not sure how quick that will be, only because the fact that Tanya's in her second term.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Todd is. But Todd, he was making noise about standing down last time, and then of course we've got this next election coming up where they will be in opposition. If this country's got half a brain, and it's not fun being an MP in opposition. It's just not fun.
No, it's not. It's and actually, with some of the people that Labor are putting forward, they're not going for the next, the candidates are putting forward.
Oh, we're playing the new team.
They've got secession plans in it, like the fact they're going to have, they've got Barbara Edmonds in there, but they also have headhunted Craig Rennie. They've headhunted Gary Perenda up in Whangarei. So you'll have doctor versus doctor in the seat of Whangarei.
Yeah.
It's definitely Labor definitely has learned a lot of what to do, and they are looking at beyond one term with their MP selections.
And the National Party can say what they like about Chris Hipkins, and they can say, "Oh, he's not strong," but that's actually nonsense. He has been very strong. I'm impressed with Chris Hipkins.
He is the next, maybe not quite 4 terms, but he's next Holyoake in waiting.
Yeah,
because I pictured this as quite a number of years ago. That Chris Hipkins was the next. He would be in a future Labor government after Jacinda Ardern left.
Yeah,
he did end up as Prime Minister before that government lost the election, but I do think he will end up winning the next election, because I think it basically, the way this current government, people elected Luxon thinking it was going to be a John Key government, and he's just basically, I don't know what you want to call it.
He doesn't have John Key's charisma or presence. It's so hard to respect him. It really is. He just talks so much nonsense, and he's so trite and entitled, and actually just, it's vile listening to him.
Yeah, exactly. He just doesn't he doesn't have a sense of reality. The accommodation allowance stuff, that was just one of of course I'm entitled to it. It's
that day he said, "Oh, I'm okay, I'm sorted," and I just thought, you plonker. That is, we've got people who are literally living under bridges. We've got families living in cars, but you're sorted, so that's okay.
Yeah,
and that's the leader of this country. John Key had more compassion. He was actually a more real person, and I just think Luxon is. I just find him diabolical. But I do want to know my prediction for next year.
I'd like to ask, what's your prediction for the seat of East Coast?
Oh, I actually think Labor will take it, because the woman that we've got in that seat at the moment is
Dana
Kirkpatrick. Yeah, she what does she do?
Well, Dave speaks a little bit more positively about her then.
Yeah, well, he would. Love you, Dave.
But he always tries to find the good in people.
Yeah, well, I don't, because I get to pick up the pieces of broken lives. People when things go really bad in people's lives, it's a knock on my door, and so I see how ineffective some of our local body politicians, some of our central government politicians are, and actually, to be fair, local body people too. And it makes me mad when I see that happen. I think Dana had a crack at it. I don't think she's a good MP, and I think that Joe, who is the Labor Party MP, has got a lot more drive to make things better.
What's Joe's last name?
Oh, Joe, it always falls out of my head.
It's not, because there is a Joe Luxton that I know.
Joe Luxton, yes, that is
Oh,
her.
she's looking for taking this. So
Yeah,
she's
living in Gisborne now.
Oh,
And,
because the previous seat she held was Rangatata that she lost
Yeah.
to James Meager.
Yeah, no, she's up here. This is because she's come home. This is her hometown.
Oh,
So she's
okay.
come home. So when Jack did his bike ride, how all of the like Chris.
Yeah, I couldn't quite get there because Kerala Cart ordered that day, and they are so difficult for frickin' orders that basically there's no flexibility with them that I couldn't go there that day.
Well, Joe organised for Chris Hipkins to come out. Like, Christopher Luxon refused to come out and see my 15-year-old son who'd ridden 1,000 kilometres. But Joe asked Chris Hipkins to come out, and he was stoked to, really happy to come talk to another biker. And mountain bikers, road bikers. But Joe is she's actually just a stellar human being. She gives a damn. She's damn hard work.
That's going to be quite funny with a Luxton and a Luxton running for
a Luxton and a Luxton. Yeah.
Running for constituencies near each other, because Cameron Luxton, I think he probably will end up running for Mount Maunganui electorate, but you never know. I got to admit, he was a little bit disappointed. Well, Whakatane got it wrong when they voted for Māori wards.
Oh, what a plonker. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. It's like, no, they got it right. I mean, like Tony's just been a great example of why Māori wards work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I really want to see Joe get elected. I will, I'm trying not to have a political affiliation anymore. I've, I was the chair for Waiariki for Tamati for all of his time in the Parliament, but I always, I'm not a traditional Labour Party person, probably more aligned to the Greens, but
I just want to ask: have you had Andrew around your dining room table for a coffee while he's wearing the mural chains?
Oh, he didn't wear the mural change. It's pretty disappointing. He and I we had a coffee on Sunday, and then we went for a walk around the Sunday market together and had lunch, and it was wonderful. And I just feel like we're the A team because, we've got this really cool plan that we're going to go and have these coffee mornings. I'm going to bring a staff member from the regional council. He'll bring someone from the district council, and we're going to go clean up the area and solve some problems.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But yeah, so Joe Luxton, she's my pick for West Coast, for East Coast rather.
Yeah, I will be honest. Ramatai electorate. Well, no, she's going to call Wellington Bays. God. Yeah. I'm still unsure whether Julian will be able to hold it or not, or will Craig Rennie get it. It's a difficult situation for the electorate. The new Wellington North, I'm not sure where it will land, but I think it's more likely to land Labour, not Greens, because of the area it's in taken across the boundary region is the blue part of the Oharu electorate.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure. So it's the blue part in there. Now, if it had Greg O'Connor getting the nomination, I would say Greg would have it in the bag. But that isn't the case. Aisha Verrill got the nomination for Wellington North. So it will be interesting what will happen there. But yeah, I mean, I'm still, the next election is going to be very interesting.
Oh, it is going to be. I'm excited about it. I wasn't excited about the last one because I.
Oh, the last one felt like just like, oh god,
just felt like hell. But this one I'm excited about because I know that it's going to be the big change one, and this horrible crazy power wielding bunch of loonies is going to get kicked out, and I feel very happy about that.
Yeah. As from what Valentino has put on there, Labour will probably take those seats from Greens. Yes, it is very likely. And I would say if Craig Rennie wasn't put as of the Wellington Bays nomination, Wellington Bays would have gone Greens because it's become more green. But Craig Rennie's is a pretty interesting pick. And also last time, Labour didn't put the best candidate they could have put in there.
Yep.
And that's like, and National put in a candidate who was going hard out to win the seat. So it really made it like it was an interesting toss-up. Like I was unsure where to put my vote at the last election.
Right.
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't going to Labour. It was between the National candidate out of spite or the Greens, and I'm glad it went to the Greens.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
well, I'm really fascinated to see what's going to happen for us. I mean, the Greens will probably put up their candidate that they always do, but it's going to come down to Joe or Dana, and or Dana. She calls herself Dana, not Dana.
Oh, Dana. Okay.
Yeah, Dana. Yeah, but I think that I will be really happily promoting everybody to vote for Joe. Because, and I'm just a bit sad about what's happened with Te Pāti Māori, and I think that the right wing has definitely contributed to the falling apart there.
Oh, yeah.
It's in their best interest for Te Pāti Māori to fail, and so I think that they've used the media to make things a lot worse, as they do, quite manipulative, a lot of misinformation.
What's his name, Plunkett?
Yeah, exactly. So it's I'm a bit sad about that because. Like Tariana Turia and Peter Sharples, they were phenomenal people, and what they did for Māoridom, what they paved the way for something magnificent, and it's been awful to watch it.
Actually, Rawiri Waiti got the Labour Party nomination in 2014 for Wairaniki. What was he like back at that point in time? Is he still the same Rawiri we know now, or was he?
He's just a bit arrogant, and I remember him being at Whakatane, and it was a candidate event. Him and Tamati sitting up on the stage there, and he was making all these outlandish promises, and people who don't understand how politics work believed that he would have the power to make these promises come true. And I'm standing there saying, you cannot believe that he's going to be able to do that. It's just not possible. Yeah. And people were booing and hissing and spitting at me. It was vile. And I just felt so sorry for Tamati, because I could see in that moment that Tamati was going to lose to a lie. Yeah. And that was awful to see, Sam. Because Tamati is actually one of the most hardworking, honourable, decent politicians I have ever met in my whole life. And he didn't, he had all his years on the tally. He didn't need the spotlight and the trumpets and the fanfare. He just got on and got the work done for the constituents.
That is right. Yeah, he definitely was that. Yeah. So now let's get to some question and answers for Todd. Instead of talking about talking about Todd and then flying on to Tamati.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Minister. Can I just clarify before we get underway, which two of the three Labour members are participating?
No, usually I thought it'd be swapped out. That's right. And obviously,
I'm out.
Mr. Chair, I'm very relaxed about an extra member asking me a question. Sorry, so you don't have to exclude someone from my benefit.
Okay. First question anyway, the Honourable Penny Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, officials. Thank you for your comprehensive remarks to open our session. You are right, some of the more technical matters we can dive into with the officials. My first question is the big move on Pacific Reset, and from the outset it looks like it's the right thing to do, yet what we're seeing across the Pacific far more challenges arising despite the huge effort over the past 2 years with the Pacific Reset. I wondered if, Minister, you'd like to offer some views on that.
Well, the Pacific Reset is very important. I would argue that probably one of New Zealand's greatest obligations as a good neighbour and a friend is to our Pacific countries, and particularly many of the smaller nations that face challenges around climate change, and they're not immune to the geopolitical challenges that are going on around the world. We work closely with other countries, advocating strongly, of course, with Australia, with the US, with Europe, with most parts of the world, about the importance of engagement with the Pacific and support them. A lot of what we do is around the development space to support the nations, to help grow greater self-sufficiency. But we also need to recognise, whilst geographical isolation in itself is a wonderful thing when you need peace and quiet, that the Pacific has not always been as quiet and peaceful as we are used to. And so we have continued to step up our efforts there. But maybe for greater detail about some of the activities in the reset, either now or later on, officials could help. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Celia Wade-Brown.
Thank you. Following on your question about the Pacific, I was interested, I've got some bigger questions, but I'd just like to focus on this, given the attendance of our colleagues from Vanuatu. And I'd like to offer my sympathies for the earthquake almost a year ago, and I wondered if you could enlarge, or one of your staff could enlarge on the humanitarian assistance to Port Vila and other areas there.
Well, thank you so much. Well, firstly, recognising members of Parliament here from Vanuatu, and thank you for coming to New Zealand. The relationship we have with Vanuatu is extremely important to New Zealand, not only to the government. And whenever there are challenges, natural events, earthquakes, and so on, New Zealand very easily, quickly steps up to provide assistance. It's not a difficult decision to make. Funding, whilst it is there available, actually we believe as good neighbours and friends that we have an obligation to do that. And you know that the work that New Zealand officials know what they're doing is important, and I know directly from the Vanuatu government it is welcomed and they're very pleased. And so, you know, if I have a simple message for our Pacific neighbours, is they don't have to worry about the support of New Zealanders in the time of challenge and trouble. We have rights and obligations of both sides. We, you know, we address them respectfully as our equals, but they also have obligations to us and to themselves at the same time. But perhaps I'm sorry if there's a little bit more, particularly on our efforts in Vanuatu.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Committee, and good morning. Bernadette may have further detail, but just to reaffirm the points that the Minister has made, I mean, we were very quick off the mark to provide the help that was needed following that terrible earthquake last year. And it was in some ways a sort of a twofold crisis, because obviously it affected our staff as well and our High Commission, but also more tragically impacted the people of Vanuatu. And there are, in a way, two stages to this. There was the immediate response we had to provide, which is the kind of things you can imagine you need immediately after an earthquake. But there is also a long tail of reconstruction that will ensue. One good example, for example, is the damage done to the education sector across Vanuatu, the damage done to its schooling infrastructure. And that's an area where New Zealand will be engaging in a multi-year, multi-million-dollar program to help sustain those vital schools to keep the children of Vanuatu educated despite the terrible plight the country is in as a result of the earthquake. Bernadette may have points to add.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning. And just very briefly to add, I think one of the interesting things out of this one was it was getting in very quickly, and particularly with our France Australia, so our friends, colleagues, to do the immediate assessment piece. But one of the things we did was have engineers up there very quickly from Becca who actually were able to do assessments through particularly the education sector and work out which school buildings were going to be safe. So they immediately had to be dealt with first, which are the ones that we will be dealing with over time. And actually literally today, our High Commission team are just moving into a longer term temporary premise for them, which just shows 1 year on of how challenging it has been on the ground with so much infrastructure damage. So it was a tragedy, and sadly one that we have many times over in the Pacific.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what do you think of fan of the show, Celia Waybrown's question regarding earthquakes in Vanuatu?
I think it's really interesting because what we have seen in the Pacific is the strengthening of the Chinese position and the weakening of our position. And so then we have to start redefining what our position actually is. Yeah. So I'm fascinated to see where this goes over the next decade, really. I mean, it's a slow burn. But of course, China is strengthening its position throughout the whole Pacific, including here, certainly in Australia. I'm just really
the USA has not helped the position.
No.
Yeah. Where is China buying their beef from at the moment? Australia.
Yep. And but they've got that, but we also have to remember that they're very clever with what they do. So they create a reliance by building, like we become the big China, and we're your biggest buyer of this particular product or resource. And then they stop. And so then the value of that entire market falls over, and then they come in and swoop it up and buy it for nothing. And then
milk powder.
Yeah, they're very, very clever at doing that, and they don't play a short-term game. They're in this for the long game, and we've seen the way that slow integration into the Pacific of the takeover is real, and so we think we're still like the police of the Pacific, really, looking after everybody and making sure everyone's okay, but we actually are deluded to believe that we still have that power.
Yeah. Let's see what more comes from the questions from Todd. For Todd,
we share the ring of fire.
Next question, Vanessa Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, and to your officials for your work. Probably most recently, the announcements in terms of supporting Ukraine and support for those impacted by Cyclone Ditwa as well. I wonder if if you've received or sought advice in relation to whether it's likely or not that we would be in breach of our FTAs, any of our FTAs, should we fail to meet our Paris climate target.
Well, the government has set out how it will achieve our obligation to Paris on net zero by 2050, and as I set out with Mr. Climate Change earlier this year. Indeed, the good news is the pathway gets us there further than 2050. We take our obligations extremely seriously in all international agreements, trade agreements, as well as those about climate change. And so ultimately, it's a hypothetical question as to the effect it might have upon our trade under a number of free trade agreements, because we are on track to do that. The one thing I would like to clarify, though, is that there is a confusion or misconception that says when we enter into agreement with another government, trade, perhaps in a trade agreement, that country, that government has ability to tell the New Zealand Parliament what to do. If you look at those agreements, many of them are greater than aspirational, but it is very clear it's a sovereign right of the New Zealand Parliament to make decisions in the best interests of New Zealand. And how we meet those obligations is actually what we are going through and dealing with now. You will have seen that the European Commissioner for Trade and Industry was in New Zealand just quite recently. We had a very big trade summit. There were a lot of businesses from Europe that came down to see what more we could do together on the free trade agreement. He was asked the same question. It was only a week or so after the government had announced its new policy on how the agriculture sector would meet its obligations and its contribution to New Zealand being net zero by 2050. He, to the media and subsequently in other engagement, said he had seen the changes that New Zealand had made. He believed they were compatible with the free trade agreement, that New Zealand meets its obligations, and it was for us to decide how to do that. So there is no advice that I have based on the decisions that have been made that we are in contravention of any agreement, and the reason for that is the government takes our obligations seriously and would not make a decision that would contravene a trade agreement.
So just a very quick sub, and thank you for that explanation. I agree that it's up to New Zealand to decide how we meet those targets. Should we fail to do so, however, is there legal advice in terms of what our potential liability?
Well, interestingly, there's two parts of the debate. The first is our obligation under Paris to be net zero by 2050. The second is there are domestic targets set by the last government. Unfortunately, when the previous government set those targets around NDCs in 2030, it was already impossible at that time to meet them. And so actually, hypothetically, that was a question that might have been asked by a previous cabinet. However, the very good news is we are on target, on track to meet our obligation by 2050, and therefore to suppose what would happen if we didn't is not an important discussion to have, because we remain on track.
Supplementary from...
No, it's a new primary.
Oh, okay, sorry, we'll come to Tim Costley first.
Yeah, my question is also on trade agreements. We've seen a lot of progress, I think, in the year that this one, we had the Gulf States agreement signed. But I think also there'd be a lot of interest in hearing about India and progress there. You're able to touch on sort of free trade for the year in review, but also with an eye for the future.
Yeah. Well, I suppose more broadly to start, New Zealand's a trading nation. It's often said 400 million people around the world get 10% of their diet from New Zealand. We produce more food and fibre than we could consume ourselves. It is a very high quality. It has some, New Zealand producers have some of the highest quality reputation, or the best reputation of anywhere in the world. And the world and consumers are demanding this. With that comes a story of providence. So in everything the government does, current and previous governments, it is about upholding that reputation. But the world is not a fair place. People don't have to buy for us. And so ultimately the government's job is to level the playing field. We are blessed to have, I would say, arguably the best trade negotiators in the world, and particularly, for our size. And I know that's the envy of many other ministers that I go up against to talk about trade or we negotiate against. New Zealand has around 100 free trade double tax or investment agreements with countries of the world, which levels the playing field and it gives real opportunity for New Zealand businesses to consider risk and where they want to put their own effort rather than the government telling them what they should do. So our job is to level the playing field. I was very pleased that we were able to reach across the House and get the UFTA in force many, many months sooner than had been predicted. And we did that because, one, trade should be bipartisan. It doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but we must agree trade access is good for New Zealand. And if we don't do that, then fundamentally we don't understand how the New Zealand economy works, and we miss opportunities to tell New Zealanders that we wholeheartedly as a parliament will back them on the world stage. That EU FTA, having entered into force early, in the first 18 months has been worth an extra $2 billion worth of exports from New Zealand that largely would not have happened without that agreement. Secondly, the UK FTA has seen a very significant increase in exports over the 2 years. The trade agreement with the UAE, which was the fastest negotiated by our officials in the history of New Zealand on the highest quality on entry into force, now has entered into force, and it opens up huge opportunities, a $500 billion market for New Zealand. You mentioned the GCC, that's concluded, it's yet to be signed. The member countries are going through the process of getting permission to sign. We expect that will happen in due course. And with India, against a lot of concern that a negotiation might not be able to take place, talk about the priority and whether India should be a priority or not. I was very pleased with the Prime Minister in March of this year, only 8 months ago, we were able to launch negotiations. There has been significant engagement across the board from both sides. You will have seen I hosted the Indian Trade Minister to New Zealand, and I've just been back there recently, and I expect one more trip to India before the end of this year. We are making progress and making good progress, but there remains a lot of work to do, because I will only come back to the Prime Minister and Cabinet and say we should conclude if it is meaningful and a good deal for New Zealand.
And supplementary.
God, that's interesting. Hearing about trade and bipartisanship from my dad. Questions from my dad's local MP.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and they were good questions, but the answers I'm not so convinced about. I'd love to see these trade agreements to see where the treaty sits. If ACT has been able to get the government to remove references to the treaty in our new trade agreements, which of course increases our risk so much. And interesting that he didn't actually talk about our increased risk, because he doesn't want people to know that. He doesn't want people to know about those investor courts and what our risk is to our tiny little economy. So yes, trade is great, but extraction economics is not sustainable. If we keep taking everything out of everything from the natural environment and replacing it with contaminated material, poor air quality, poor soil quality, poor water quality, then what are we doing and how was it worth it? So we might be making a buck now, but at what future cost? What cost to our children and grandchildren?
Well, I'd say we've got to call it quits on our Scrutiny Week coverage, otherwise we'll be here all night long.
Oh, we would be too.
Yeah. Now, we did put a poll on YouTube. Should the Prime Minister be subject to Scrutiny Week? And the poll mainly has come back with yes, but there is one person I think put a no in there, because it's not unanimous, about whether the Prime Minister should be put in front of the select committees.
Well, that person who said no should be put in front of this committee. Hey, defend your position.
They probably would not be able to sit and last that long with us.
No. Yep, good luck, buddy.
Yeah, good luck, yeah.
It's been cool hanging out with you tonight, Sam. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. It's being back in our own little bubbles rather than on was it the chair with was it the dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I can't wait till the next election. Hopefully, you're. Hopefully, see that Firebeard. I don't want to hear him waffle. That's all. I blame you. I support your position. I take it all back. Sam, I hope that you're coming up our way for It's in the Ballot.
Try and fund it. It's the big one. But yes,
because what you do matters, and what I say to you is. What I'd say to you is come to Whakatane.
I need a treasurer. That's what I need.
All right. Well, you've got all these people in this chat. One of them should be putting their hand up to be your treasurer.
I don't know. They didn't do that last time. I don't know. Would Firebeard do it? I mean, apparently Firebeard lives in Newlands, from what I've gathered. Probably
on the money where your mouth is.
Yeah, on the what's it called? On a certain side of Horokiwi West Road, overlooking the Wellington Harbour.
Well, do you know what? I think that this is. I'm really excited about. We're coming into some really cool, exciting times.
Yeah.
My prediction, if you want to hear it, folks, is I think Winston Peters will pull out of the coalition agreement early next year, force a snap election, and that Winston and Chris will become co-prime ministers. It's the only job Winston hasn't had. This will be his last rodeo. He wants the big job. I mean, he's been the stand-in, but he hasn't had the actual job. So that's my prediction, is that we'll have co-prime ministers for the first time ever, and it will be a coalition of Labour, New Zealand First, and Greens.
Oh, okay, that's a different one to what I predicted. I don't predict the snap election. I predict the election date will be Saturday, November 28th, 2026, which is one of the latest dates that can be chosen.
That is so late. They want to do maximum damage.
And I think the reason why is David Seymour.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
I
there's
think
three
Winston's
more.
going to pull the plug on him. I think that Winston's going to be like, I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to
The
save the
interesting
day.
question is, will he pull the plug at the budget?
Possibly.
Because that would be the time to do it, because if you can't pass a budget, you have to go to an election because it's unconstitutional to have a government shutdown or have supply restricted. But then at the same time, the uniqueness part of budgeting, thanks to Grant Robinson, we budgeted 4-year cycles. Like, the other thing is that not many people actually know for councils, you technically cannot have a supply issue in councils because of the 10-year long-term plan. Yes, it gets reviewed every 3 years, but it's a 10-year process.
Exactly. And we've got that coming up, which is why the government's trying to get in and wreck everything.
And they're trying to have laws passed before the new long-term plans kick in, which is the 27th.
Yeah. So, so when is the budget? Because I'm predicting that Winston's going to pull the plug in April.
Oh, okay. Budget's May.
Oh, there you go. We might be onto something there, Sam.
And also April, they're not sitting much in Parliament.
No.
Well,
all right.
the draft schedule, just because of where the public holidays land.
Oh, this is going to be very interesting.
Yeah. But yes, no, I don't predict. I predict a later election, not an early election.
Okay.
But that's just based on the bits going through there. There's another one of November the 14th. Is another date that that's what Paul Barlow has heard through the grapevine.
Okay. Well, we'll see. One of us is right, one of us is wrong. Oh,
we might all be wrong.
Yeah, we can't both be right.
Yeah. Okay.
My friend.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow for more Order Paper Podcast Scrutiny Week special. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then. Have a good evening.
Ka kite.
Thank you for watching the Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/it'sintheballot. The Order Paper Podcast is brought to you by It's in